The Van Cave.
What?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Drinking beer and talking about the motorcycle ride we just went on.
Yeah.
Or something like
Motorcycles
that.
in general.
So how does this work, man? You got to go to Tim's YouTube channel to see the video of the ride, and then you got to go to Matt's YouTube channel to hear the after ride commentary on the ride. Is that the way this works?
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it like that.
I need to get a YouTube channel so I can
You have one.
You do, don't you?
Yeah, I don't have anything on it.
You did some GoPro videos
Yeah,
of me.
some of you just
Cool.
There is nothing
Sounds
better
good.
than beer after you have a long ride.
I know it, man. I've been looking forward to this. And I'm thirsty, and I hope I don't. This is Script the podcast trying to quench my thirst here.
And yes, I am drinking Coors Light, and I don't care who knows it. Yes, I'm a craft brewer by trade.
Oh my God, he just came out right here on the Van
I'm
Cave.
drinking a Coors Light. Dude, Coors Light is good beer. There's not a damn thing wrong with it.
He just came out, dude. This is a big moment for
We
you.
were all here.
And when it's hot, you know, you've had a long ride or something like that, you just need to be refreshed. And, you know, we didn't stop to get anything to drink.
No.
I'm one of these guys who I have to stop every so often to just get something to drink.
Hey, I brought a liter of water with me, but apparently I thought it would be a really good idea just to pour it inside of the pannier on the right side.
I wondered what you had done there.
It's an Nalgene bottle, and it wasn't turned, it wasn't, fastened all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a shirt and all my crap in there, and it was just open the luggage, and the water just ran out, soaked the shirt that I had in there.
Yeah, Cliff and I were over there fueling up, and I came back, and there's this giant pool of water around your motorcycle. I was like, that wasn't there.
Yeah, and I've used those bottles for decades, and I have never done that. It just was loose. I just grabbed it off the counter, threw it in the bike, and never checked it. So
Oh, well.
that was a fun ride, man. It's a good day to be doing it.
That was a fun ride.
Other than Interstate 20 in oilfield country.
Yeah, and anytime I do the edits on that, I either don't film or don't show the footage from the interstate portion of it because it's just a little slice of hell. So, man, it's just I hate riding on the interstate. But certain places we go, if you want to get home and get back, get there and get back rather in a reasonable amount of time, you got to take the interstate. So yeah, it ended on a low note, but all overall, that was a fun ride. That was a good. It's going to be a good vid.
That's the one thing about living out here. Anywhere you go, you have a great time, and you're tired. You've been riding or whatever you've been doing. So now you just have to pound hours of interstate or long straight highways to get home. Especially if you go east of here, because like at the Dome, and you come back in the evening, you're driving right into that sun with 100-mile-an-hour traffic. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is one of the things about like the hill country ride we do every year. When we go down to the Three Sisters and go down near San Antonio, the roads are so beautiful. The country is so beautiful. You just get so spoiled to it. You're having such a great time. And then when you're making that I'll tell you what it is for me. It's that last stretch between Garden City and Midland where I go, oh, my God, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad.
So that trip and the New Mexico trip, those are 4-day trips.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. It takes one full day to get there.
Yep.
It takes one day to remember how to turn a motorcycle on a twisty road. It takes 1/3 day to actually enjoy turning a motorcycle on a twisty road, and then the 4th day is go home. So
yeah, that's true.
So that's why it's a 4-day trip, because you can't do it in less than that and not have a good time. You can go down a day, ride the twisties, and come back, but you didn't have enough time on the twisties to really get your head acclimatized to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because our roads around here are generally long and straight.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it takes one of the things that I always do anytime like we get down into the Davis Mountains or get down into the hill country or anywhere where the roads start to be really curvy, I always am mindful about, hey, man, don't get all excited and happy and just go full tilt right off the bat. Take it easy for an hour or so or however long it takes, and then gradually just start swinging the bike more and increasing the speed more. because I have to get used to things, which we've talked about before. I have to get used to things like vanishing point. First of all, the first thing I'll start doing, is vanishing point. All right, where are the vanishing points? Let's ride through this one time, ride back. Let's ride it a couple of times. We'll do that between like Fort Davis and the observatory or some of that stuff. Okay. All right, I'm good now. You just have to take a little bit of time and acclimate yourself if you're in a place with long, straight, boring roads. And then before you know it, man, you're down.
I mean, if you haven't gone around a curve in 6 months like me,
yeah,
then it takes a little while to get your head wrapped around the fact that the bike is having to lean over.
Yeah.
I so wish you guys would come to California with me this year. I wish we could make that like a dude trip. I know it's hard to do for you guys, especially right now with everything everybody's got going on, but it's going to be the end of July, and it would be so awesome just to have you guys with me along with all my California friends and at that scene, that whole big scene that we have every year there, and go ride Big Bear one day, ride Idlewild one day, check out all the cool stuff around Palm Springs. I mean, you guys, it would be a great time for you guys. You would absolutely love it.
I was, Rich Cotty, our buddy, lives up there.
He lives San Diego-ish?
Yeah, San Diego-ish,
somewhere
in there. They, somewhere around there. He and his wife both ride, and we were talking the other day about rides and such, and we're making noises about renting a sailboat and sailing to Catalina and back. Yeah. That's a pretty cool deal. That'd be a good way to finish off a motorcycle trip.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, if we go to California with him, we're going to have to ride all the way out there and back.
Ugh.
Wow. You guys don't have to do that.
Oh, yeah, we do, man. We got...
Here's what we'll do, man.
We own mile liter machines.
That's true.
Dude, we got to ride them.
You are under no obligation to ride 1,000 miles, to ride 500 miles, and then ride 1,000 miles back. Here's what we could do.
That's what I bought the bike for.
Well, okay, if that's what you want to do, it would be hard for me to do because I don't have a C14 or a feeder. I could do it. It would be a challenge. But my whole thing is that we could rent a panel van that all three of our bikes would fit into. We could go there, and then we could spend like 3 or 4 days and just ride all around Southern California and then load them up and drive back. That's what I'm thinking. I know that would dishonor you guys. It would dishonor your mile munching motorcycle reputations. But
hey, on the motorcycle topic, and before I forget, we had a pretty cool message conversation on Facebook between us and Brett about our first motorcycles. Mm-hmm. What was everybody's first bike?
Well, I guess the first actual bike I had was a little Honda 50, little mini, the little, like the Honda Monkey.
Like a monkey? The original Monkey.
Yeah, the original.
Is that the one with the handlebars that are kind of, how to explain it? They're sort of
little round tank on it.
Yeah.
Little fat donut tires.
Yeah.
Those were great bikes.
It was a hardtail.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. And I actually broke the frame in the back jumping over stuff.
Had a little scrambler exhaust on it.
Yeah.
They were neat bikes.
That was the first one I had. And then I got a little bit bigger. Got a Kawasaki 100. And the one I sent y'all was that it was called the Kawasaki Trail Boss. It was 73 that I saw for sale up in Lubbock. And I don't think the one I had was quite that bike. It really breaks my heart. I don't have a single picture of that motorcycle.
I am in a similar situation.
I don't know why. I don't know why I don't.
Yeah, certain motorcycles. I guess we were just so focused on riding them, we never thought to take pictures of them.
But I don't think it was probably. I'm trying to figure out. It was probably earlier than that one. It was probably like a 70 or 71. I looked at bikes online, and once you hit 69. It couldn't have been that old because the style totally changed, and Kawasaki totally changed in this 1970.
Yeah,
and so it was that 70, 71 style. It had the dual gear range where it actually had 10 gears.
Yeah, my buddy Roger Gertzen has one of those. His is a 75. It's a 100.
And the thing is that low gear ratio is so low it's practically worthless. I never used it. when I was a kid because it is so low. It's like riding a tractor. I mean, you're literally you're in fifth gear and it'll go 25 miles an hour.
Right.
It was just too low.
Yeah.
What was the point to that? Does anybody know?
I don't entirely know. Were they?
It was supposed to be like an enduro trail, thing.
Yeah, it could be one of those things where you could do. I don't know. I just
pulls.
don't know what tractor pulls. Yeah, maybe really steep hills. If you were super low geared, it would be good for that, or trials type stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't trials bike. It was way too fat and heavy for that.
Right.
But
of course, all of them were in the early 70s.
And of course, the first thing I did when I got the motorcycle is start taking stuff off of it, like a kid, because I was riding it. I wasn't able to ride it on the street, so the turn signals got pulled off and the headlight got pulled off and all that stuff. And now, of course, as an adult, you're looking at that going, man, I wish I had that bike, and I wish it was pristine, like it was off the showroom floor. Which, of course, I did my share of work messing that up, when I was a kid. But you don't know. I mean, you're a kid, You're not thinking about what's the value of this gonna be in 35 years. You don't think that way.
Oh, dude, my first bicycle was a Thunderstar. It was a Huffy Thunderstar. It was a special edition for 1976. You remember how everybody went, freaky over the bicentennial, and the red, white, and blue, and all that crap. Can you imagine one of those things? What would that be worth today?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that my first bicycle is a very, very big collector's item, and it got stolen when we lived on Kansas Street when I was little. It was a Schwinn. I struggle with the name now, but basically it had a shifter.
Yeah. What color was it?
Oh, yeah.
It's red.
So they made 3 of those. They made the orange one, which was called the Orange Crate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they made a green or red one was the Apple Crate. And then there was 3 different colors of those bikes.
It was supposed to be like a muscle car inspired bike.
Yeah, it had the shifter and it had
kind of a slick
banana seat
and a slick back tire.
Oh yeah.
I've seen those.
And that bike was great. And so it got stolen like an idiot. I left it in the front yard one night and it got stolen. Kids do stupid stuff and mean people do mean things, and I got my bike stolen. And so years later, and I'm still convinced of this to this day, at Peyton's Bikes, my bicycle is hanging up in there in their collector bike section.
Oh, man.
That's my bicycle. I will not hear I reject all other realities and substitute my own. That's my bicycle. They have one exactly like that hanging up in the rare bike section. I wish I still had that bicycle.
So wait, let's get back to the first motorcycles. That's where we started.
That's where I wanted to go.
You know what? It's kind of weird, but for most of us, bicycles transition into motorcycles. So what was your first motorcycle?
It was 1976 KX125, and the first one I ever rode was a JR50. I think I got a picture of me and my brother on that thing, little Suzuki, automatic transmission. And my stepdad was working. He and my Uncle Bill were rebuilding the offices at Schleiermeyer Field. And, it all ties in with my aviation and all that stuff, because my stepdad also flew the tow plane at the glider club there. Mm-hmm. And my first time in an airplane was with Roy Schleiermeyer himself. So this was, I think it was even before the place became Schleiermeyer Field. Mm-hmm. And they were doing some work, and there was a motorcycle out there that my stepdad kept noticing, and it belonged to the people that ran the airport, and he decided I was about the age for a motorcycle and said, well, we'll do this extra edition or whatever. I won't charge you for that. You give me that bike. And this thing looked brand new. I mean, it was unreal how clean that bike was. But, I was a tall kid in a 125, and man, that thing was a rocket. And we lived close to 6 Mile trails, so I got a chance to tear up a lot of dirt on that thing.
Boy, I had some fun out at 6 Mile in my day too, and I wish that was still what it used to be. I miss that. I would probably still have a dirt bike today at almost 50 years old if those were still out there.
The four-wheeler craze killed 6 Mile trails.
Yeah, it did.
For those of you who don't know, I'll link a blog post I wrote on it. 6 Mile Trails is a chunk of land between Midland and Odessa near the airport. I don't remember who originally owned it. The city owned a chunk of it. Agri-Impresa bought some, oil companies. But it had, I don't know where 6 Mile came from. It may have been 6 miles at one time, but it was more. It was more than that.
Yeah.
I measured it out. Anyway, back in the day, in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, there would be hundreds of people lining the roads with their cars and trailers, with motorcycles out there, and everybody's tailgating and riding motorcycles. It was an amazing.
It was so
sight.
fun.
Yeah. And
so was Shafter Lake, by the way. Shafter Dry Lake. Back in the day, you could go out and do the exact same thing there. There were lots of places back in the 70s and 80s and into the early 90s where you could go ride off-road.
Just go ride.
It was private land. Everybody knew. They didn't care. They wanted people to have a place to ride off-road, and that's all gone now.
What happened, there was a dry lake bed at 6 Mile, too, that was like a circle track. We would just get out there and just tear it up. What happened with that, the first thing that happened at 6 Mile is businesses around it started buying little chunks and fencing them off, and then the city built a driving course for the academy that they used for like 2 years.
Yep.
And so the trails just sort of evolved around that stuff. But the next thing that happened was when everybody started buying four-wheelers, the accidents out there started going crazy. Because you got to understand, if you go out there in the 80s, it was people that rode dirt bikes. There was a three-wheeler here and there. Those sucked and were so dangerous that you didn't see them a lot. And I rode a friend's three-wheeler out there, and they were miserable machines to ride on a motorcycle trail. But it would, the family would go out there and barbecue and have a good time. And the people that did it raced or just rode trails, but they were motorcyclists.
Yep.
When the four-wheel craze came out, I was a patrolman during a lot of that and had to answer calls out there. And no longer is it people on dirt bikes enjoying a Sunday. It's people getting shit-faced drunk and 5 kids on one four-wheeler flipping it over.
Yep.
They're just people with they don't belong on anything with handlebars going out there. And the accidents went up and up and up. And finally the city said, no more of that shit.
Right.
The city had bought a part of that and where the lake bed is.
Mm-hmm.
And they put up no trespassing signs, and that didn't work. So they made us go out there, and just run. We never arrested or anything. We just ran people off.
That's another reason why I hate four-wheelers. Hardest part of riding a four-wheeler is having to tell your parents you're gay. I'm kidding. If you like four-wheelers, that's fine.
I think there's a place for them. I really do.
Yeah, for hunting especially.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna pack out, if you just shot a 900-pound elk and you need to pack it out, a four-wheeler is a great way to do that.
Well, it was the fact that immediately the place got even more crowded.
Yeah, because of the proliferation of four-wheelers. You don't need as much, I don't want to call it skill. You don't need as much experience, and you don't need as much training to ride a four-wheeler as you do a dirt bike.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There were people that would just go out and buy one because they're cool as hell. They're like a go-kart, man.
Yeah.
You get on one and tootle around and have a good time. And in contrast to buying a, no shit dirt bike. Mm-hmm. They're just not the same. But anyway, so what was your first bike?
Okay, so of the three of us, I'm the only one who still has his first motorcycle.
Does everyone want to take another trip while we get started here?
Heck yeah. Okay, so my first bike was and is a 1977 Bonanza mini bike. It is at my house. All that I have left of it is the frame and forks.
Wasn't that a Montgomery Ward thing? Isn't that where they came from?
You could buy them at Montgomery Ward, yes. Bonanzas, I think, were primarily marketed through Montgomery Ward. But where I got mine in the summer of 1978 in Clarksville, Tennessee, at a hardware store called... You son of a bitch. Yeah, because the cameras can't see you doing that. At a hardware store called Granddaddy's. I think it was called Granddaddy's in Clarksville, Tennessee. And actually that only closed that hardware store only closed. And it wasn't just a hardware store. It was like an outdoor store. It evolved into this sort of multi-use, like a homegrown, family-owned academy.
Yeah.
One of those. So that's where I got it, and I spent that whole summer of 1978 right on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky, and I rode the crap out of that little motorcycle through grasslands, Kentucky bluegrass grasslands, out on this ranch where we were spending the summer. Took it home. Took it back. It actually ended up at my grandparents' house in San Angelo because my mom didn't want me to have a motorcycle. But my granddad was like, yeah, this thing is badass. So it ended up staying at my granddad's house for like 2 or 3 years in his workshop. And anytime I went to go visit my grandparents, I knew I had an extra added bonus that I was going to get to ride my mini bike. Finally, I talked my mom into letting me bring the mini bike home, which she finally relented. She knew she wasn't going to get this motorcycle thing out of my blood. And so I brought it home. And
well, she wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong at all, because that was 1978. This is 2019, so I've been riding motorcycles for almost 41 years. So that's an accomplishment, I think. But I brought
and became a motorcycle instructor and a writer. And
spent 8 years and 9 years as a motorcycle safety instructor. Yeah, I can't ever just do. It's just like Freemasonry. I can't just be a Freemason. I have to be a Freemason instructor. I have this weird compulsion to do that sort of crap. Anyway, I brought that motorcycle home, and it actually became a functional part of my life because I grew up in a very rural area out in South Midland County, and it became something that was actually for a 12-year-old kid, 13-year-old kid. It was practical transportation. And then from there, I went to dirt bikes, and then when I got to high school, my parents started saying, well, what kind of car do you think you want? Well, and I said, I don't want a car. I want a motorcycle.
I'm not going to live my life in a damn cage, man.
And my mom said, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And, of course, right about that time when I started driving was when Top Gun came out, which I thought was the greatest film ever put onto celluloid at the time.
Right.
I go back and watch it now and go, wow, what a piece of shit that movie is.
Yeah, but, man, at the time, it was...
It was something else at the time.
Unbelievable.
But, man, Tom Cruise rode an 84 GPZ in that movie, and I wanted that motorcycle so bad.
You and a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I had to have that GPZ. That's where my love for Kawasaki's came from, actually, if I'm honest, is that movie. So I told my mom, I said, here's what the motorcycle I want. It's a GPZ 750. And she said, there is no way in hell you're getting that.
That's too many letters and numbers. It sounds dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to have one.
Well, and she was right. Thank God my parents clamped down on that, because I would have killed myself. I would not be sitting here. We never would have met.
Well,
but I did get a Rebel 250 when I finally got into college. By the time I got into college, they realized that I was mature enough that I could handle a street bike, and so they were okay with me and my brother riding street bikes. So my brother bought a Rebel 250 and never rode it. He bought a Rebel 250, and then he was working this pretty good job he had at the time, and then he got this little pickup, and he loved this little pickup. And this was like my freshman year at college. Right? My first 2 years were at Midland College, and so. That motorcycle just kept sitting in the garage, and I was like, dude, can I ride that motorcycle? He said, yeah, dude, I don't care. I thought he had it paid for. I thought he just wasn't interested in it. I was riding it to class every day. Man, I was having a great time on it and all this other kind of stuff. And then one morning, the repo man shows up at the house.
Oh, my.
It was early,
Never a good thing.
It was early. And I hear this guy knocking on the door. And I said, Eric, and this is like at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had arranged for all my classes to be in the afternoon my freshman year in college. And Eric was there, and so I went to his bedroom, and I was like, hey, man, what's this guy doing? He's got a trailer out front and everything. He said, oh, crap, he came to get my motorcycle. And I said, your motorcycle? It's my motorcycle. And so, that dude, Eric wouldn't answer the door. He wouldn't talk to the guy. So the guy just went and grabbed the motorcycle from the side of the house and hauled it off, and I never saw it again. So that was real sad. So I didn't get to ride motorcycles for a couple of years until I got married. So of that 41 years that I've been consistently a motorcyclist. There was actually a period of just a few years there where I didn't have a motorcycle until after I got out of college and got married and all that.
I got a KLR. My mom bought me as a graduation present a KLR 250. Like 1987, they call them the
Great
Barbie
bikes.
bikes. Yeah, they call them the Barbie bikes. Now the blue and they look like a Barbie toy. Is why.
Yeah.
And I remember the battery went out, and I had to ride it. And I was going to Midland College, same as you. I lived out by the airport, and so my life was on cold mornings kick-starting a KLR 250, which sucked, and then riding it to work to school, which sucked. And then one day I go to class and I came out. It's even colder and it's sleeting. And I go, okay, this is why there are 4 motorcycles in a parking lot of 5,000 cars.
Yep.
I am not going to be as cool as I'd hoped in life. And I now have a KLR 650 and love the hell out of it. How many bikes did you own between that one and the your V-Star? Because I get to tell the story about that.
One.
Which one?
I owned one bike between that one and the.
Well, okay. What was it?
It was a Yamaha, like a DT 250.
Oh yeah, the DTs.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a dual sport bike, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those.
Kind of, sort of enduro style.
Enduro style. Yeah.
Interesting story on that one. So I worked with a guy who had the motorcycle and he wanted to sell it, and so I bought it from him for $250.
I'm looking at pictures of a DT2.
It was cheap
while you tell this story.
And so I had it, and I didn't have a motorcycle license. I had the bike, and I'd go ride it occasionally, but it was totally a hobby. I mean, I didn't need it for transportation or anything like that. And so a good friend of mine, guy I grew up with, he was married and he had a baby and was working like all the time and only had one car. And so I loaned him that motorcycle so he could ride it to work. So his wife wouldn't have to get up with the baby at 5 a.m. and take him, one of those kind of deals, right? Well, this is going to sound funny when I say it, but he lost it.
Wow.
He
he forgot where he parked it?
I asked him, I go, dude, where's my bike? And he goes, I took it over to my cousin's house, and I don't know where it is. I was like, okay. So I actually still have the title for that motorcycle in.
You just don't have the motorcycle.
I just don't have the motorcycle.
Dude, I'm looking at a picture of them right now, and those are cool motorcycles. I remember those now.
That looks kind of like the one I had, yeah.
Yeah. And
wow.
So anyway, mine was silver. It was a nice little bike.
So no explanation, no. Wow.
And so it was one of those situations where, I had $250 invested in this thing, and I was like, okay, I've known this guy literally my whole life. I mean, I grew up with him. We're as close as if we were brothers.
Yeah.
Is our friendship worth more to me than $250?
Right.
And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could have been a dick about it. I could, but I just decided either way, I'm not getting the bike back. So just let it go.
I totally sympathize with that whole point of view on having irresponsible friends who are essentially good people, but they're just, F up a lot.
I'll be totally honest with you. You, Cliff, and my wife are two people that when I'm about to do something stupid and emotional, I'll go, what would they do in the situation? Because I won't ask what Tim does, because Tim's an emotional, flaky artist like me sometimes in that part of it, and would
I
do
have
something.
So many regrets. In life.
You know what I mean, and
I totally do.
I only have one other story. My cousin, or almost as crazy as losing a bike. My cousin had what was Honda's 80s Enduro line, XR, I think.
That may be.
I think it's XR. He had an XR 80, and that was the most indestructible machine I have ever seen in my life.
Typical Honda.
And we just beat the shit out of it. And I say we, my 125 died a horrible death. I'll tell you that story later. But we went to Canyon Lake where my cousin Abe is drummer Abe, watches this channel, and we went to his house and we were taking turns riding. He lived by Canyon Lake and we had a little track laid out. And we rode around there. And there was a sort of a little ravine where we used to go shoot and made a good backstop. And I got to thinking that would be a fantastic jump. And turns out it was. It was a really good jump. and
Perhaps
so
too good.
Yeah, so it was so it was my turn to ride.
Sweet jumps.
It was my turn to ride and I took it off a sweet jump. Yeah. Well, as you move to different parts of this embankment, it got steeper and steeper until finally I got up there and it was like a half pipe at this point. I was really stupid. I was probably 12 years old. Launched the bike and I fell. I went up, so I shot straight up, like these motocross guys, when they do the half pipe tricks.
The X Games.
Yeah, X Games kind of things. And I fell right back down the wall. And then I thought, holy shit, that bike is going to come down on top of me. Like I've shot that bike up. And so I'm laying there in the fetal position, just, waiting to see St. Peter because I waited and I waited and I waited and I didn't hear the bike crash and I was okay. And I got up and I looked and there was no motorcycle. I thought, wow, that's awfully strange. Because I went up to jump. I fell off the back of the bike.
I distinctly remember being on a
motorcycle.
I know. It was right here, like under my nuts. There was a motorcycle. What had happened, I did, just like I said, I didn't hit the jump hard enough, fell off the back. The bike is hanging in a tree.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and what had happened was it hung on a branch just behind the front tire. So like you would hang a bicycle up in a bike shop, and it's just sitting here, like movie shot perfect with the leaves of the tree falling. So I had to do the walk of shame, and I never will forget the look on my cousin's face when he's sitting here going, "Hey man, it's my turn. Where is that asshole?" And I came walking out of the tree line with my helmet in my hand, and I think the helmet we all shared probably. And
where's the bike? I lost it.
You got a pole saw I can borrow?
And we had a bigger problem because we weren't supposed to be riding over there anyways, so we couldn't ask any grown-ups for help. So
of course not.
Anyway,
might get in trouble.
Yeah, we went over there and
inept adolescents trying to solve problems.
Yeah. We got his bike down but yeah, that thing was a bulletproof bike.
Well, hey man, I do want to say that DT is what made me a Yamaha fan. And I'll tell you why. Because I bought the bike when I bought the bike. I was living in a trailer house. I didn't have a garage. I didn't, I didn't ride the bike every day. And that thing could sit outside in the weather for 6 months at a time, and I could go out there and I could kick that thing 3 times and it would start.
Yep.
Every time. And I was like, this is the most amazing motorcycle ever. When I had that Kawasaki, if I didn't ride that bike like every 3 days, it wouldn't start. I mean, we would have to tie a rope on it and pull it around up and down the street in gear, until it would finally start. And that Yamaha was amazing because I could just totally neglect it for months and go out there, kick that starter, fire right up, and away we go. And I was just that was like, at that point, I thought, man, Yamahas are awesome.
Well, I will tell you this. I'll share this with you. You probably already know this, but the reason I own a Yamaha now is actually because of you. Woohoo! Because Clif now has a 2016 FJR 1300, which he traded up for, actually he just bought it. Before that, he had a 2006 FJR 1300, and one of the reasons that I bought my E17, which is one of the bikes I have in my stable right now, is because of how much good luck you've had with both of those bikes. It also has to do with the fact that FZ07 kind of is a badass motorcycle. Yeah. But I knew, there's been a lot of times in my motorcycling past, and I've owned over 20 motorcycles, where I thought, there was a time in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s when I thought about getting like an FZR, but they were having reportedly real big clutch problems with them and that sort of thing. And so I kind of had this thing in my mind, even though I rode a YZ80 as a young kid, about Yamaha having quality problems. But then I start following things like the Iron Butt Challenge and stuff, that stuff that you got me interested in, and I'm like, holy crap! Most of the bikes that finish this are FJRs.
Yeah.
And so I've had for over 3 years now. I've had that FZ07, and that is such a fun little motorcycle. It weighs 375 pounds. The way I've got it configured. It makes 75 horsepower. I've got a little fuel controller on it, a probably slightly too loud exhaust on it.
Probably.
Well,
probably.
Maybe.
But
maybe.
I love that little motorcycle. And I didn't ride it today. I needed to put some miles on the Kawasaki.
Hold on. I'm not letting this go, dude.
Okay.
I cannot let this go. Go to Tim Kreitz Adventures right now. Fuck this guy. Go to Tim Kreitz Adventures. Go to not last year, but year before that when we did the Hill Country ride.
Okay.
And look at the matte cam footage at the end. Like Tim took, I had a different resolution camera.
No. That is the dual Ghost Town ride.
Ghost Town ride.
Okay. So there is a video from the year before last that's called something like "We Find a Colony of Bats in an Old Ghost Town."
I'll link it. I'll link it.
Yeah, it's the Silver and Senko Ghost Town rides, and yeah.
You
At
can
that
hear
point,
my headset. Yeah, is nothing but.
Look, I no longer have that particular system on the bike because it was extremely loud. But yeah, anyway.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway,
I had to break
that's the end of it. I've talked too much about it.
No, I had to break your balls on that.
But I just wanted. But Clif is the one who really kind of bolstered my confidence in. Do I drop $6,500? On a Yamaha, and dude. It's the best $6,500 I've ever spent on a motorcycle in my life. I love
Let me tell you how Cliff took the trip down into the rabbit hole on motorcycles altogether.
Well,
go ahead.
But hey, I still own a DT250. So
technically, you do.
I have the
do,
title.
You got to find that DT250.
Even when what the story you're fixing to tell. I had a motorcycle.
You had a motorcycle.
I owned a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I owned a motorcycle. I just didn't have a motorcycle.
That's so legalistic, but it's true.
Yeah. So my patrol career early in, so we're talking. It was right after Nicole and I got married, which was 2001, I believe. God, I hope so. I'm terrible with numbers. Anyway, I bought a 1980 GS 1100E model. Okay, which is a rocket. And a friend of mine at school, a kid named Scott Backus, had the 750, and I loved it. I always wanted one of those bikes. And it was close to the office. And so when I'm out working, I kept passing it, and I kept passing it, and I kept passing it. The emotional, the kind of artistic kind, you only live once thing kept kicking in. And finally I called the dude, yada, yada, yada. I bought the bike. It was in good shape. It was roadworthy. And fixed it up, cleaned it up, polished the motor. You know how they had that lacquer shit on it that kept them shiny in the showroom. And anyway, I showroom, new suspension, progressive suspension, all that stuff. And rode it quite a bit. Had a great time on that bike. And then I got called up in the Coast Guard. Now I was having electrical problems with it. The 80s Suzuki electrical systems were shit. This one had the Honda regulator rectifier in it, but still, you had to, like Cliff, you said about your Kawasaki. If you didn't ride that damn thing, it was like you had to just reconstruct it every time. Yeah. So I was out running around and rode over to Cliff's house. I was just out screwing around, riding it because I wanted it to start the next week. And Cliff's looking at it, and we talk old motorcycle stories. And here, at this point, and we'd been friends for over 20 years at this time this conversation took place, and never ridden a motorcycle together.
So you needed somebody to ride that motorcycle
while
you were on a boat.
So what I'm saying is Cliff was not riding. If you can picture, I want you to try to picture Cliff not with no motorcycle in sight, right?
It's a strange
At
concept.
this point, it's really
but I
weird.
still owned a motorcycle.
So we were
didn't
talking.
have a motorcycle.
Yeah. So we were talking about it, and I said, "Hey, man, I need somebody to keep this thing fresh for me." You know, and Cliff's like, "Man, I don't know. I've ridden, and I don't want to trash your bike." And I told him, I said, "Look, this is how much money I've got in it. You have that much money, right?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, because it's not much." And I said, "All right,
Ride it.
yeah, if you burn it to the ground, I don't give a shit. You give me that much money, or I don't care. Just take it." And so, boom, off I go. Yeah, he gets the motorcycle, I get the boat, and I come back a few months later, and it's sitting next to a V-Star 650.
Oh, yeah.
And
All
then,
right.
and then
You
we
reinfected him.
yeah, we ride together a little bit. The Suzuki has old bike problems like your 76 did, 78.
78.
78. And we go on a ride, and then the FJR turned up, and I rode that 650 a couple of times on a couple of rides. And then after the FJR, I said, "Fuck this guy! You can't have the coolest sport touring bike." Plus, I had wanted a Kawasaki Concord. I just loved them. I loved that design. Well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna treat myself to the first new motorcycle I've ever had, and they quit making the Concord all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, then the C14 came out. I was drooling over the C10s and the C14.
I still call the C14 a Connie though. That's
Yeah.
just the
They
way-
are.
Everybody
They're still
does.
Connies.
Yeah.
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 The forum. The forum for the owners. They call them. It's the C10 or the C14. They're all Connies.
They're very, very highly preferred in Europe as police motorcycles. The
It
C14.
is. I can tell you right now.
If you watch
If I was a motor cop, that would be a fantastic bike. to
Oh yeah.
have.
If you go, going back to bicycles for just a second, if you ever watch any of the major European bicycle tours and bicycle races, the vast majority of those police bikes and camera bikes are all C14s. So
He got the FJR probably a year before, 2 years.
I got it in 2006.
2000. Yeah. So
Year and
I
a
got
half
it.
or
I got it
so
in
seven.
April of 2006.
So I got the 2008 and 2007. So it was about a year later, and we took them out and swapped bikes, and concluded. I think we came to the same conclusion: the FJR is more sport bike, the C14 is more touring bike.
Yeah,
just in the feel.
Yeah,
Right.
they're both sport touring bikes. One's a little bit more sporty, and the other's a little bit more toury.
right,
You know,
and
but,
you can tell
but they're
just
very similar.
just
very
by
similar.
looking at your C14 and looking at well, to a lesser extent your 2016, it's a little bit more toward the touring side too because they did all that stuff with the suspension and the electronics, but you can totally tell that just by looking at like you look like at the 2006 era, that generation of FJRs, and you go, man, you could pull the panniers off of that thing and maybe a smaller windshield, and it looks just like a sport bike.
Well,
Yeah.
and that that 2006 was the second generation.
Right.
The first generation, the 2004s and 2005s,
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
sport.
Sport orientated.
Yeah, very. And you talk to those guys that own them, and they are definitely more sport,
Yeah.
way more sport than they are touring.
One of the reasons I chose Kawasaki, I mean, it was my first bike, and they made helicopters, which always been to airplanes and stuff. But
and ships and trains.
oh yeah.
Kawasaki Heavy Industries.
My
baby.
riding lawnmower has a Kawasaki
There you go.
V-twin engine in it.
Boom. Mike Long that runs Motorcycle Performance here in Midland.
Yep.
You know, long history of racing, and he's a collector. And
One of
just
my most popular
yeah.
videos is me and Mike hanging out in his shop
Yeah.
showing his motorcycles.
cool guy. I was in there probably. Oh, he was making some bolts for my Suzuki. They were the wrong length, and he was cutting threads on some for me. And he had gotten, I want to say it was Dallas Police or Fort Worth Police KZ1000s in there.
Yeah.
And that guy was telling me all these horror stories about how shot out those bikes were and still running.
And they would still run.
Yeah.
My 1978 KZ1000 Limited, that bike, when I bought it out of Sholo, Arizona, and it had 18,000. I bought it in 2013. No, that's incorrect. I bought it in 2011 with a 16,000 miles on it. I proceeded to put another 10, 12,000 miles on it in the few years that I owned it. And I kept thinking to myself, this motor's going to let go at some point. It's so old. It's from the 70s. It's going to let go. Something's going to go wrong with it. I would take it out, and dude, I was riding with this group of guys they were part of like a church motorcycle group, and they always used to invite me to come and ride with them until a couple of people got mad at me because, I don't know, I guess I'm not holy enough. I'm not a good enough Christian to ride with.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Okay, back to the bike.
All right, back to the bike.
Don't get me started.
Anyway, so
this has not been a good week in religion.
I would hammer that motorcycle. I mean, I took it out for the years that I owned it after I restored it and everything. I kept thinking to myself, I better stay close to home because as hard as I'm hammering this, something in this motor is going to let go. And it never did. And I'm convinced that if I hadn't sold it like an idiot, one of the worst motorcycle decisions I ever made was selling that motorcycle after all the work I put into it. It would still be running today. It would still be in my garage. It would still be a daily rider.
Well, hang on.
Go ahead.
Back to the Suzuki GS.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you talk about the Purple Rain GS?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
See, Tim doesn't even know anything about this.
Is that what's his name's bike?
The one that JR has.
JR was trying to sell me that bike.
Dude, you need to get that bike. It is a GS. It's the same year. It's a 1980 GS. Oh, shit.
E model, wasn't it?
No. It's the G model, which is the shaft drive Cadillac.
Okay.
To the interwebs.
Yeah.
But back up. So Matt had Matt had his GS, and in just casual conversation at work, I find out that one of my coworkers owns.
That's right. I forgot that.
A GS exactly like Matt's.
Almost exactly. Almost exactly. That was a little different motor, but it was everything else was the same. It was a motor and shaft drive, but it had the Vetter factory package. Like it came off the showroom floor with all the factory options with the Vetter, and it looks like the bike that Prince rode.
Oh, I remember these bikes. Yeah. This was like they were trying to do kind of more of a touring or more commuter version of it.
It was, yeah, and if I remember right, and I could be completely lying, it was a package where Vetter, or anyway, it was everything matched: the tank, the fenders, the Vetter fairings, the whatever the hell luggage, everything on it was the same color. It was all, and you could get it from the factory like that. Or it could have been like a deal like the Yancey Camaros or something. Yanko Camaro. It could have been something like that. But anyway, it was one of those bikes, and it had all the cool shit on it. And Mike Long did the carbs, and I kept it for about a year, and I rode it off and on, and I had that 1100E. And that's when I realized I like riding motorcycles better than restoring them. And I wanted to get on the thing and ride it and come home and not have to worry about jack shit. And then one of my buddies was looking for a project, JR, and I hooked him up with that bike. My 1100, my friend Rick Rowland has it, and he's restored.
Rick's got that?
Yeah, he has that one. He's been restoring a lot of
bikes.
Rick,
you need to call me. Is it running? Did you get it running yet? Okay, so I always loved that bike.
Well, and it was mothballed, so it's running.
I
mothballed it. I didn't just let it sit. Okay. It's completely mothballed.
I was really, really surprised when you decided to get rid of that bike. You got rid of it not long after I got rid of my 78 KZ1000.
Well, I was running out of space. I got the KLR, and I've had 3 motorcycles before, and I don't ride one enough because I'm more of a long trip guy, and
you mean like to California and back? Is that
what you mean?
That's what we need to do.
Yeah. So anyway, but
you guys got to go with me this year.
That's going to stay in the family because I knew if Rick got rid of it, you would get it because there was some reason you didn't want it at the time.
Well, the main reason that I didn't want it at the time was because I was changing jobs at that time, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, there was something going on.
Something was going on. I can't remember what it was, but I I think that about the time you got rid of it is when I bought the FZ07.
You got the FZ07.
And I was like,
yeah.
I don't have room for it now, dumbass. Why didn't you tell me 2 months ago?
And plus, like the rest of us, you have a wife that the eyebrows keep going higher and higher every time you bring home another motorcycle.
Honestly, Nicole wouldn't care as long as they're not in the bedroom. But where I was with that is I had 2 bikes, and I have the KLR and the C14, both of which I maintain like a freaking helicopter. You know, they're always running. They're always, you know, if the first time a battery looks sick, I toss it. You know, I do not care. I take good care of those bikes. And then I had that Suzuki with a 50-50 shot at it starting that day. And that's when I go, you know what? I want the shop space. I want that bike. That is not a bike you ride every day. That is not a bike when Tim says, hey, let's go check out this cool abandoned building, that you go grab that one. That is a bike you ride for the love of old motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And if you love old motorcycles, you got to love spending money and turning wrenches. And I did that, and I'm over. That's where I am.
I will tell you this, that 20 years ago or 25 years ago, I would have been very critical of you for that decision. But I have become more of a utilitarian in my older years as I approach the big 550 this year. I totally get that. One of the main reasons, and I'll tell you, speaking of that I sold the 1978 KZ1000 was to buy my Triumph that I have now, because the Triumph looks like an old motorcycle from the 70s, but it is stone reliable and has fuel injection. Yeah. And so I do miss that the KZ1000. I'm not going to lie. There are 2 motorcycles in my motorcycle history that I look back on and I think that was a mistake getting rid of it. One was my 2000 ZX6R, just the perfect fit for me. Like, you get on a motorcycle and you go, oh my God, this fits me like a glove. That was that motorcycle. Yeah. The other one is the 78. So along the way, I restored a few other bikes over the years. I did an 84 454 Limited. I did a couple that were in various stages. Some of the 78 was the most involved restoration, though, I will say that. So I do miss it for that reason, because of all the work that I put into it. I mean, it was blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
I didn't put a lot of money into it, but that was because I figured out how to do everything, and I, you know, talking about polishing engines and making everything work right. So I look back now on that as a mistake, but at the same time, I put so much work into it that I got such a high price for it that I couldn't turn down the offer.
Yeah, you really did.
And it put a huge chunk toward paying cash for my Bonneville, and I love my Bonneville. So
I horse traded with Rick Rowland, and he's Rick ran into some health problems about the same time I did, and he sort of throttled back, and he's spending more time kind of enjoying himself. And that dude has an incredible stable of old bikes.
His Harleys.
The mini bikes, the Hondas. I think he has a Trail 70, stuff like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen the entire collection.
He's doing that, and it's cool because somebody has it that appreciates it. It's not riding behind a barn.
Yeah.
So, that's my deal.
Well, I can tell you, like, a lot of times during the summer, I ride the bike to work. And so I'll ride it 5 days a week. And what happens is you roll around on the weekend, and, Tim's like, you want to go ride? And I'm like, yeah, okay. But, it's not.
I've already been riding 5 days this week.
I've been riding all week this week, so it's not like I just have to go ride. I mean, it kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't have that itch just bugging you because you've been scratching it all week, right? Well, so I'm the same way. By the time I got 3 motorcycles and 3 cars and 2 lawnmowers and weed eater, I've always got something that needs to be worked on. I get tired of working on stuff.
Yep.
You know what it's kind of the same thing. It's like, dude, I don't want to go buy something to work on. I got plenty of stuff to work on already. And so that's kind of like my deal is you don't have that itch because it's already getting scratched,
that's why I've limited myself now at this age and at this point in the history of the life of Tim Kreitz. I limit myself to 3 motorcycles because if I have 5 motorcycles in that garage, you got all this stuff to worry about. Every month, it seems like every other month, you're going to the tax office to buy tags for a bike.
Right.
You've got to keep them running. You know, I rode
keep them insured.
You got to keep them insured. I rode the ZR. You got to keep tires on all of them. You've got to, all of that stuff. I rode the ZRX 1200 today. The main reason I rode it today was not only because I just wanted to have that big, giant, hooligan, obnoxious, fast bike, but because, you know, I haven't ridden it in 3 weeks. Or no, 2 weeks. I haven't ridden it in 2 weeks and it needed to be ridden. So you have to consider those kind of things. What bike do I need to ride today? What's been sitting for a week or two? You know, and so, yeah, that's why 3 is my limit. And I'll tell you that I'm looking really hard at that Triumph Speed Twin. The 2019 Speed Twin. Oh, my God, dude. The bike is so badass, but practicality keeps coming back into my head. I keep thinking to myself, what bike are you going to get rid of? You going to get rid of your Bonneville? I'm not getting rid of that. You going to get rid of your ZRX? Hell no. You going to get rid of your FZ? Actually, no, I'm not. Do you want 4 motorcycles? No, I don't. So I'm not going to get it right now.
That was like somebody was telling me last time Nick and I were sailing at Canyon Lake. And this guy came in and he looked at our boat and he goes, "Dude, is that a Potter? Oh my God!" I said, "I've always wanted to see one of these." And he came and I'm talking. He's looking inside. "Oh man, it's so neat the way these are laid out." And he's into race tuning. "You could do this. You could do this." And I go, "No, I can't. I don't care. I don't give a shit. It's factory. There's very little done to that boat because I don't want to screw with it."
You guys are both really good about that.
I don't want to test it. I don't want
motorcycles.
I want to get in it, and I don't want to be halfway across the lake and realize whatever mod I have screws with this and that and all. Because I want to enjoy the experience. Now, it's not to say if I had another bike and you know more time on the earth, I would do all kinds of crazy shit. But I don't want to fuck with it, man. I want to get out and go ride.
Yeah.
I want to go.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But hey, man, if that's your thing, you know,
that's it.
That's cool. I got no problem with that. I just don't. I just want to go ride. I just don't want to spend hours and hours out in the garage.
And I've gravitated
futzing
more
around with something.
I learned that lesson in high school, the hot rodding days, and you wind up bumming rides because you blew a bunch of shit up, doing stuff that you're not supposed to do with it. So
I can't tell you how many times I've told my kids. Yeah, the higher the performance, the lower the reliability.
You can go long or you can go fast, but you can't go long and fast.
That's what Clif said. He told me a conversation he had with one of his kids that they saw some kind of badass muscle car and you know this old dude driving it is perfect and pristine.
Yeah.
And Clif said, and his kid was talking about, that's what I want. I would do this and that to it. And Clif said, "I guarantee you, that guy has like a Ford Festiva at home that he drives to and from work every day." And
well, the guy, it was my son was talking about sitting at a red light next to this Porsche or something. I don't remember what it was, but it was some awesome car, you know. And he's telling me all about the car. I mean, every minute detail that he noticed. And I go, "What the driver look like?" He goes, "I don't know." Because he you know, he was not looking at the driver. He's looking at the car. And I go, "You want me to tell you what he looked like? I can tell you what he looked like. I wasn't even there. I can tell you what he looked like." I said, he had gray hair. He had a Rolex watch. And he had a Lexus in his garage. I said, and when he goes out to go to work and that fancy car you were drilling over, when it doesn't start, he goes, "Huh." And he goes and gets in the Lexus and he goes to work.
I think it was my Uncle Bill that said that the other guy has like a 4-cylinder Ford that he drives to and from work all day.
That's right. Because he's not, that dude does not rely on his hot rod to get him to work.
Well, and when you have an old motorcycle, it's the same thing. Because when I had that 78 KZ1000, I had 2 other motorcycles, and that were, of course, you know, I'm historically a Kawasaki guy. It's just been in the last 5 years that I've started buying things like Triumphs and Yamahas and all that. I've always just owned Kawasaki's, except for a few Suzuki's here and there. But one of the things that I've kind of, you know, figured out early on is if you're going to have an old motorcycle, you need to have one or two reliable newer motorcycles. So I had the 78 KZ1000 and I had a ZX7R and that ZX6R. So yeah, that's exactly right. So you can't rely on those things as daily drivers.
Gentlemen, we're up against an hour.
Okay.
We're at the,
So when are we going to start talking about the ride we did today?
Go to Tim Kreitz Adventures. Give me.
Give a shit. Watch his video.
Yeah.
It'll be out in a couple days.
It was a good ride.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Our glasses are all empty, so
we had our fill.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Peace.
I want another beer.
Me too. Let's do it.
Out.
Cut.